Good morning to all of you. I am Dr. Seema Singh from Faculty of Law, Delhi University, and today I am here to deliver my thoughts over a very relevant topic. And the name of the topic is Women and Law, a Jurisprudential Insight. Once I have mentioned the title of this lecture, Women and Law, obviously it reflects the idea of combination of two things. The first thing is the woman and the second thing is the law. Women is something which is a very important part of the society, which is the backbone of the family, and which is almost 50% of the entire population of the world. But when we are talking about women and law, it automatically reflects that plethora of laws are going to prove that women are still fighting for their most basic rights. And believe me, this is not happening only in India, but across the globe. And to prove my point, I will try to put certain important legislations as well as data from India as well as from abroad. So, my entire discussion will be primarily divided into three parts. The first part would be related with the international treaties. The second part would be related with the position of women in Western world and in Islamic countries. And the third part would deal with women and India. So let's begin with the first part. And the first part, which is basically going to deal with international conventions. So once we are talking about the international conventions, there are plethora of international convention. And once I am saying this, that there are plethora of international conventions, it is self-explanatory in nature that discrimination against women has been globally recognized. And to prove my point, I am just trying to mention certain international conventions which are very important to discuss at this point of time. So, few international conventions are the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which is also known as CEDA, which was adopted by United Nations in 1979. Another important declarations and conventions are Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Cultural, Social Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women. So, I have mentioned certain international convention just to put my idea that there are so many international conventions to give the protection to the woman. But the important thing is, despite having so many international conventions and so many domestic laws, what is the present position of women across the world? And to prove the point, I am just trying to mention certain data of United Nations, which United Nations has declared in the year 2020. And this data says? This data says that globally 736 million women, almost 1 in 3, have been subjected to some or other kind of physical or sexual violence. At least 155 countries have passed laws on domestic violence, and 140 have laws on sexual harassment at workplace. So it is very much clear that the violence against women and sexual harassment of women at workplace, it is a global problem. Then there are few other data. At least 200 million women and girls aged between 15 to 49 have undergone female genital mutilation in 31 countries, and this is a very serious problem, specifically in some African countries. 15 million adolescents women worldwide aged 15 to 19 have experienced forced sex. School related gender based violence is a major obstacle to universal schooling and the right to education for girls. So, I have given this data just to prove that how still in the 21st century, the women are going to face different kind of problem, whether they are a girl child, they are a grown up woman, they are an elderly woman, they are going to face, they are a working woman or they are housewife, they are going to face different kind of problem across the world. Now, this discrimination against women, it is not a new idea. Women are fighting for their right from past many centuries. And to prove my point, I will try to give you certain things related with Western world. Why I am firstly mentioning the Western world? Firstly, I am mentioning the Western world because most of the time we are under this impression that the condition, either the social condition, economic condition, political condition of the women, that is very much good or far much better in comparison to in comparison to developing countries. It is much better in the developed countries, but the real picture shows something else. A long time male patriarchy forced women to rise for their rights. And I would like to mention the name of some feminist activists in the Western world, especially in America: Suzanne B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady. Both were the first feminist leaders who persistently, since 1800, demanded for political and social equality for women. So in the in the country like America and many part of the European countries, the women are fighting for their most fundamental rights since 1800. And these fundamental rights includes right in the property, right to work, equal pay for equal work, and gender suppression. So these are the problems which these women are going to face. And ultimately, in the year 1920, right to vote was officially given to women. By mid 19th century, many state legislature enacted laws to give property rights to married women, which was earlier under the full control of the husband. So you can see very well, you can understand very well that till 20th century, the most basic like right to vote, is also not available to one of the most civilized country, which is considered as the most civilized countries. I'm talking about United States of America. So the women are receiving right to vote in the year 1920. So this patriarchal mindset, which was dominating in the American society, it compelled women to start a movement, and that movement is known as the feminist movement. This feminist movement by 1970 and 1980 evolved in the form of different kind of feminist theories. Why I am discussing all these things here? I am discussing all these things here just to give you a background that how the concept of women jurisprudence has been evolved, how this feminist jurisprudence has came into the picture, and what is the effect, positive effect as well as the negative effect of this feminist movement. So when I'm talking about the feminist movement, this feminist movement reached at its peak around 1980, and during this time period, the feminist jurisprudence has been divided into several subcategories. So I'm just going to mention few subcategories for your kind perusal. Like the first theory is the Marxist feminism. So the women, scholarly women or the women right activists who belong to Marxist feminism, they believe that women liberation can be primarily achieved through economic equality. So they believe in work. They believe that if the women are working, then they are more powerful. So the first criteria for Marxist feminism is to be financially independent, and obviously the importance of this thought cannot be denied. The second important feminist theory is radical feminism. Radical feminism, at a particular point of time, it was a very celebrated term. And under the radical feminism, women are not only demanding about their right, but they are also completely rejecting the idea of patriarchy and the existence of men. So there was a movement that we don't need men. So that was a kind of radical feminism. And subsequently, radical feminism has also seen different kind of criticism by the different segment of the societies. The third kind of feminism was the liberal feminism, and liberal feminism supports legislative effort to remove inequality. So what basically they are trying that the legislature should come forward to the making of laws to give appropriate place to the women in society. So this liberal feminism, that is a more balanced approach, because they are demanding their rights through the legislature. Cultural feminism is the another kind of feminism, and under the cultural feminism, women believe that they are superior than anybody else because they have capacity to procreate. So they believe in their uniqueness and they believe in their superiority in the superiority of the female sex. So this is all about certain theories. I have just given mentioned these things in very brief to give you an idea that how basically different kind of feminist theories were working, or they were the part of the western world where they were fighting for their basic right. And subsequently the impact of this feminist movement can be easily seen that by the passage of time, women started registering their strong presence in all sorts of jobs in America. You know, they started registering their presence, but still there are so many problems. And contraceptive pills, it brought a sexual revolution in feminist movement. Now, you know, they started earning, and simultaneously this contraceptive pills, they brought a sexual revolution in the feminist movement. So subsequently this feminist movement, it converted into individual liberation. So when I'm talking about individual liberation, it means everybody is living for him individually. So what is the ultimate effect of this movement? Ultra feminist movement created actually a confusion, a suspicion, and distrust between the sexes, rampant illegitimacy, widespread divorce, and a generation of unloved, undisciplined, and uncared for kids became the present day United States of America. Individualism is converting into isolation and loneliness, and people are now suffering from different kind of psychological problems. So this was a brief history about the origin and the impact of feminist jurisprudence in the United States of America, which started from the fight of basic right, that is like right to equality and right to dignity, and then how we see that the women started registering their strong presence in educational institutions as well as in the job. But there is a confusion. And what is the confusion here in the western world? The women are, the meaning of equality is we will do what men are doing. So ultimately consuming alcohol, sexual liberty, indulging in extramarital affair, that became a very prominent face of such countries. And the sustainability of marriage, that started gradually reducing. So the number of divorces started increasing like anything, and ultimately the children became the biggest sufferer. So in America, a contemplation is going on that what should be the correct shape of this feminist movement, and what should be, how a balance should be maintained between the male gender and the female gender. So this is an example where we are talking about two extreme. At one extreme there is a male patriarchy which is not ready to accept the existence of women, and which is not ready to give right to equality and dignity to women. And on another hand, when the women became economically power, how they are going to reject the idea of male supremacy, and that is they are now economically dependent. They want to lead their life the way they want. So somehow somewhere there is a disbalance between these two extremes, and ultimately the entire American society, and still they started facing several kind of problems, specifically in their family relationship. Now let's discuss the second part. The second part of my lecture deals with the feminist movement in Islamic world. uh, yes, it is true that in the Islamic countries, the condition of women is still not very good, and still they are fighting for most basic right, like right to education. So in many countries, they can't go out without any male member, even if the age of the male is 10 years and the age of female is 20 or 26 years. Then too it is mandatory that a male should be there to accompany a woman if she goes out. And very recently we have seen the example, the same thing, how Taliban is trying to impose on Afghani women in Afghanistan. Now they are not allowed to interact openly with outer world. The male patriarchal mindset is interpreting the Muslim law according to their own convenience. And in this way, we can see that the women are suffering a lots of problem, specifically in Islamic State, irrespective of whether they are grown-up ladies or they are small children. So in majority of the Islamic countries, uh, women have realized that they should fight for their rights, and some mild movement have been started across the globe. So in most of the Islamic countries where few women were working outside, and they are large, and those who are largely dependent upon their male counterpart are facing different kind of discrimination. There is a discrimination in the criminal laws also. And what kind of discrimination is this? Women receives lighter punishment if they commit violence against women. We saw, and we have seen it very recently, that how women could be killed with impunity during alleged adultery. Majority of Muslim women are very much unaware about the rest of the world. To fight for the right of the Muslim women, some Muslim women have started Islamic feminist movement, and it was started in some countries of the some of the Islamic countries. I would like to take the name of Janat Anwar, who founded Sisters in Islam to fight for Muslim women's right. In 2009, women activists from different Islamic countries started a movement, and this was a very famous movement. And this movement was started for women rights. The name of this movement of Musawa means equality. So they believe that gender bias is not inherent in Islam. So they are basically going to challenge the interpretation of Islam, because they believe that the Islamic law's interpretation has been made through a patriarchal mindset. So they want to develop an interpretation which is primarily based upon the point of view of a Muslim woman. So patriarchy, according to them, is a result of misinterpretation of Islam by male dominating mentality, and they want to interpret Islamic law in a more progressive manner. In many parts of the world, ordinary Muslims are waging a peaceful jihad on male autonomy and demanding what they say are God given rights to gender equality and justice. So they believe that under the Islamic law, the God or the Allah He has given right to equality and justice to the woman, and they want to slowly change this male patriarchal mindset which is dominating these Muslim women through the progressive movements. But this fight for for these women, that is not very easy, and many of them were forced to leave their respective countries. Now most of these women who have started certain kind of movements from Iran or some other Muslim countries, they were forced to leave their country, and now they are running these movement for Muslim rights from different European countries or some other part of the world. So fight for women under the Islamic law, that is still a very serious thing. And the latest threat which we are seeing in Afghanistan, that how basically they are going to issue fatwa, or they are forcing the local Malvis to prepare a list of women between 15 to 45. We have also seen the condition of women where the Boko Haram is dominating. There they are not allowing women, allowing girls to go to school. So fight for women under the Islamic law, that is more difficult, because the level of progressiveness is still very less in comparison to rest of the world. So here I gave you a brief idea that what is going on in the Western world and in the Islamic world, and I have also discussed that how there are different kind of international treaties and international convention to protect the rights of the women. But the result of the outcome of all these international conventions and all this legislation is still they are not able to give the effective result. So we have also seen two extreme. One extreme is of the Western world, where we are talking about, I have discussed about what is going on in America, and the another extreme is about the Islamic worlds, where the girls are still struggling for their education, and women are still fighting for their most basic right of dignity and equality. So this is the condition. This was my brief overview about the feminist jurisprudence in the Western and the Islamic world. And now I am going to discuss the third part of my lecture, and that is women and law in India. And in my this lecture, I will not only discuss the legal provisions, the legal rights which are given to the women, but I will also discuss the jurisprudential aspect. And at the end of my lecture, I would like to conclude that where is the solution. So I am just going to start my last portion of the lecture, which is women and law in India.